What's up, guys? This is the Power Mushroom. I'm here with Nomdee. Nomdee, say hi.
What's up, guys?
And I'm here with the Spoony Bard. Spoons.
What's up, everybody?
Yeah, and this is the One Up Talk Show. Y'all know what we do here. We pick some gaming topics. We talk about them. Kind of give our opinions on them. Hopefully, y'all can always check out the articles. They're going to be in the links in the description below. And there's quite a few topics we'd like to talk about, or like at least give our opinions on today. Recently, we've started noticing. I'm pretty sure you've noticed, Namdi and Spoony Bard, that Final Fantasy, it's been everywhere, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I mean, you go on YouTube, you have the Final Fantasy, you have the mobile game, you have recently the Final Fantasy 15 card game came out. Then you have the Final Fantasy 15 Pocket Edition. You have the Final Fantasy 15 fishing game that's coming out on VR. And you have the spin-off of the Final Fantasy 15 Assassin's Creed version DLC thing. Now, it just raised question, do you think Square Enix is milking the Final Fantasy 15 name? Like they're just milking it for all that they can? What do you
It sounds definitely like they are, and it's not, I guess. I don't know if you want to call it a bad thing or not. It's just something that companies tend to do. If something's rolling, they kind of go with it. To me, it's something that I wouldn't participate in particular. I guess if you were a gigantic Final Fantasy 15 fan, you might see this as a good thing. Like, there's more, there's more to it. There's more to dive into. Whether or not each and every one of these individual titles are actually spectacular in their own right, I suppose is up for debate. You wouldn't catch me playing any kind of knockoff. I guess really what I struggle with is, they kind of did this similarly with Final Fantasy VII. Now the mobile market wasn't like gigantic back when Final Fantasy VII was super relevant.
No.
They did have that one, and it's escaping my name right now. They had that one mobile game for Final Fantasy VII.
Oh,
and
the
I remember
Turks
thinking to myself,
mobile
I remember
game.
thinking
Yeah.
to myself that because at that point in time I didn't have a capable cell phone of playing that kind of game. I remember thinking to myself, I wish I did have a cell phone so I could, immerse myself into more Final Fantasy VII universe because I was such a gigantic fan of it. Whereas 15, I kind of just have a like relationship with, not really a love relationship with it.
Yeah.
So, I guess the question for me was, is Final Fantasy 15 really a game that's worth milking like that? It's really up to the individual person of whether or not they see it's prudent to buy all the different Final Fantasy 15 knockoffs, spin-offs, whatever you want to call them. I'm not saying that I'm against it. I'm against quality games, whether or not they're reusing the name or not. So if it's a quality game, then I think, hell, go for it. If it's not a quality game, then it's a failed venture.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I mean, like, I'm with you on that. Like, quality games, I mean, it's always good. What just scares me, I mean, we don't know, because I haven't played any of those spin-offs, I only played the main game. But it's if they're using the Final Fantasy name just to sell, the crappy mobile game, if it's crappy, I don't know. Then I think that would hurt the name more than it would help it. But, Spoons, you have something on that?
My biggest issue with it is like the whole Final Fantasy 15 universe, which is what they're deeming all these games that they're coming out, is so underwhelming. Aside from the DLC that we're getting for Prompto, Gladio, and Ignis, there's really not a whole lot coming out. And just to see a game of a port of Final Fantasy 15 over to something else, I feel like it's a lost opportunity. Like they could use that to expand the story, and that's something Final Fantasy 15 needs, is it room to expand its story and tell this story that feels incomplete.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, again, like, exactly with that, I think they can. Hopefully, in the future, if these mobile games or like all the spin-offs are doing, it makes them enough money. I really do hope that they do expand the story, because I do think that Final Fantasy 15 could benefit from that. But I mean, only time can tell. Right now is just, I think recently that Square Enix has received a lot of backlash for the Pocket version of Final Fantasy 15, that's coming out that they announced. Me personally, I'm not gonna pick it up, but I mean, if it's there for the people, and if it's a good port or a good little, phone game, then I mean, hey, there you go. Have at it.
I guess the one other thing that I would ask too is, and we will never know the inner workings of the company, is how much resource they're putting into this.
Yeah.
If it's something that's taking away from maybe a different project that might be a little more, I don't know, a little more worth it, I guess. We'll never know the true answer to that, obviously, but I guess that would be the other thing that I would look at as a negative for doing something like this. But by all means, I mean, there's different studios that get involved with Square Enix. It doesn't look like, I mean, if you look for the future of Square Enix in particular, it looks pretty damn bright at the moment with all the games that they have on the horizon, with Dissidia NT, and you have the Secret of Mana remake coming, and you have Lost Sphere, and then you have the Final Fantasy VII remake still going out there.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. But yeah, you're right. We don't know. We don't know if it's taking away from any of the projects. If it is, I would tell them probably focus more on what the bigger projects. But I mean, if it's working for them and it's making them money, then I mean, of course, the companies are going to roll with it, right?
And how about Final Fantasy 16? We haven't heard anything about it yet.
No, we haven't. I don't even know if Final Fantasy 16 going to be. Is it? I doubt it'll be an MMO, but it'd be pretty cool to see Final Fantasy go back to the turn-based combat system. Maybe with something like a nice little spin on things, because they have the manpower to do it, and hopefully it doesn't see a development hell cycle like 15 did, because that game was in development for years. It was like 10 years it was in development.
Well, it was supposed to release alongside 13, wasn't it?
Yeah,
wasn't it
right
called
after
13 Versus or something like that?
It was called Versus 13. It was supposed to build upon the lore for 13, and yeah, it was supposed to come out I think 2012, if I'm correct. But no, it never happened. All that content was cut, and that's a lot of all that money they spent on that game, because it was a really expensive game. All that money is it's gone, and it's kind of them throwing money down the drain. So I really hope that 16 doesn't enter a development hell cycle, along with the Final Fantasy VII remake, because I'm getting a little scared about that one. Yeah. For our next topic, we were talking about overrated games, and I mean, Spoony Bard, you wanted to take over that topic.
Yeah, I mean, I posted a video going through my top 5 overrated video games, and it's actually Nom that got me thinking about this comment, and I thought it would be worth talking about. What constitutes an overrated game? Everyone kind of has their own idea of what an overrated game is, but what really makes a game overrated? For me, an overrated game is a game that's still good, but there might be other games out on the market that were better. It might be receiving praise, to whereas something before, did the same thing it did, but it wasn't received as well, or it just kind of gets a lot more attention than it sometimes deserves. Your guys' thoughts on that?
So, first of all, you're very brave with your video coming out and declaring Final Fantasy IV such a beloved one. And I don't necessarily think that I disagree with you even on what you were trying to say, but that's more because I understood what you meant by overrated. And like you said, the word overrated carries such a negative connotation to it, and it is somewhat negative, but it's all relatively based. So if you have a game that is declared to be the best game of all time, and it's not the best game of all time, at least in your opinion it's not the best game of all time, then it is quote-unquote overrated. It is an overrated game. It could still be a badass, kick-ass game and still be overrated, which I think is more of what Spoony was getting at in his video, is that, Final Fantasy IV is a great game. Is it the best Final Fantasy game? No. I'm sure some people would tell you that it is. I don't think so. I don't think it's top 2. I don't think it's top 3. It's a second-tier type Final Fantasy game, in my opinion, without getting too specific on this one particular game. But I kind of understood what he meant. A lot of people are going to hear the word overrated and just replace it with sucks. So this game is overrated becomes this game sucks. And I don't think that's necessarily true. And I certainly gathered that from watching his video. I don't think a lot of people will gravitate towards that notion, though. A lot of people will just see it as, oh, he's dissing this game or this game is bad. When in fact, you know, it's really to the person. It's an opinion-based thing, as this all is.
Yeah, and I mean, I totally agree with that. I mean, most overrated games, you know, you hear the, like you said, it really, you said it brings out the negativity, you know, and mostly almost the entire community. When a game turns out to be or when they say a game's overrated, like one of the recent games that came out, Zelda: The Breath of the Wild. Nomdee, you and I got to play it, but already you had people immediately, they went on to Metacritic and they started bashing the game for being overrated. And by no means was anybody saying that the game is perfect, because I don't think that there's no such thing as a perfect game. It's really, if a game is good or a gem or really amazing, it's really in the eye of the beholder, really. Everyone has their own taste, and I mean, when people say that games are overrated, I just, like you said, it really brings, there's a lot of negativity to that. But I think that's a word that probably most people should probably think about using before they use it. You know, or
yeah, you also got to think about who's rating the game. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like, who are we talking about? And it's funny that you said that. Here's a hot take for you. Zelda Breath of the Wild, I've heard often referred to as the best Zelda game of all time. And if I was talking to that person, and I love Zelda Breath of the Wild, I would call that an overrated opinion of it. So you could honestly say that Zelda Breath of the Wild is an overrated game, especially if somebody's speaking as the context that it's the best Zelda game of all time. I don't believe it to be the best Zelda game of all time. Therefore, I think that would be an overrated opinion of it.
Yeah, and by no means are we like bashing Zelda at all, but I mean,
no, I love Zelda Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, it's amazing, but I mean, a lot of us, there are other titles in the Zelda series that were pretty cool, and just more specifically, a lot of people I've heard, they say Ocarina is the most overrated Zelda game. Breath of the Wild kind of took the cake now, but it makes you wonder, you know, where are those? I really want to know what kind of people, when they play the games and they say Zelda's overrated. I don't know why. Like, I want to know their opinions on why they think it's overrated. Because most of the time when I hear people say a game's overrated, that's it. You know, it's just the game's overrated.
Yeah.
And I'm just kind of like,
somebody
why?
has to be rating it.
Yeah, I'm just like,
you know
why?
I mean?
Yeah, exactly. And they're just like, oh, it's just overrated. And I'm just like, why though? Did you not like the combat? Did you not like the, you know, what's wrong? And most of the time when people make statements like that, they don't really back it up with their opinion on why they think a game is overrated, or, you know, why a game is bad. They just say it's bad, it sucks, and there it is, 2 out of 3, or I mean 2 out of 10.
Well, and I think I think what really goes along with overrated too is what I like to call the popularity train. Everybody's praising a game, everybody's praising it. Then you have those people, oh well, everybody praising it's just overrated, and none of them have really touched the game before, and all that. You know, I mean, it's like on YouTube one time I got into an argument with someone over Uncharted 4 having unnecessary padding, and I'm like, no, it doesn't. And he's like, it is a fact that it has unnecessary padding. I said, no, it's not a fact, that is an opinion. Well, even he said in his review that it had unnecessary padding, so it's a fact. I'm like, no, that's his opinion. I didn't think it had unnecessary padding, but so I mean, like I said, it kind of goes with people having their own opinion, people hopping on this train because everybody else says it's great, everybody else says it sucks. I got to jump on that bandwagon.
Yeah, and yeah, I definitely agree. But I mean, really, there's always going to be people out there who say that a game's overrated or it sucks. But I mean, usually when the people get older, as time passes, they can finally sit back and critique a game, or, you know, actually settle down and say, all right, the game's not bad, but it's not probably not the best game ever. You know, they actually eventually people do calm down and they come to reason instead of sticking with that. But yeah. Anything else on
Oh, I think we covered it.
overrated games? Yeah. All right. So I was talking to you guys earlier about I was talking to the Spoony Bard about Fox News kind of exposing the retro market, and then I briefly touched on it with you, Nomdee. But recently, Fox News they updated they didn't update, but they put out a video or reported on a video of retro video games. They interviewed this collector, and this collector, he was just showing them their games, but obviously, news articles or news media, they need something to run on, right, with a story. And their headline, if I can find it real quick, I believe their headline was that your retro games could be worth a lot of money or can make you rich or something like that, if I can find it. But in the video or the news article for Fox 5, they started, as they were interviewing the guy, they kept on emphasizing on retro games being worth a lot of money, trying to make it out to be more than what it's really supposed to be. And by the end of the video, they did release a few games out there that they were talking, saying that these games are worth a lot of money if you have them. They mentioned stadium events. They mentioned the World Champion Nintendo NES cartridge, and all those games. The collectors already know that those are like holy grails, and there's very few out there. But the last game that they mentioned was Super Mario Brothers, a sealed box version, going for $30,000. They set the number 30,000. It is worth $30,000 for a Super Mario Brothers, unopened Super Mario Brothers game. And that's where I have the problem. Nomdee, do you have any thoughts on this? Like, what it might do to the market?
Somebody bought it for $30,000, so therefore to somebody, I suppose it was worth $30,000. But if we're looking at it scientifically, I guess, I mean, regardless of whether or not it's in its own case or not, it's not necessarily an extremely rare artifact of any sort. So to me, it would never be worth $30,000. There's not a video game on planet Earth, in my opinion, save maybe one or two, that it would actually be worth that sort of price. And I guess what's happening, and what I think's happening with you in particular, is you're getting afraid of this, because this is like your classic fluff piece where the person comes on and says, what if I told you you could be a millionaire? Well, what if I told you you might be hiding thousands and thousands of dollars in your basement worth of video games? And then automatically people are going to start watching this, and they're going to start thinking, oh, my copy of Snake Rattle and Roll for the NES is worth $700 now, which it's just not. It's not the case. And,
No.
and so what's going to happen is, in response to this, you're going to have inflated prices. You're going to have inflated private sellers, like people at yard sales selling games. That's going to get inflated. So you're going to have people that are buying these games from yard sales and then reselling them in their mom and pop shops. Those are going to be inflated now, and the retro gaming market is already out of control. So this is just it just spells bad news. It definitely is not going to be a good thing. That's for sure. It won't have a good effect on the market. We could argue whether or not it'll have any effect on the market or not, but it's definitely not going to have a good one. That's for sure.
Nah. Spoony Bar, do you have any thoughts?
I think what bugs me most about this is this is just another clear example of the media running their mouth before actually checking the facts. I mean, we all know that the Super Mario Brothers is not worth $30,000. They picked up on an article and went, "Oh my gosh, we got to cover this," and it's just like. It's frustrating because, like, now, as you said, there's that fear you're going to go somewhere. Oh, well, this is worth $30,000. Like, no, it's not.
Yeah, no. And I mean, for me personally, because I collect video games regularly. You go to the thrift store, play a few bucks. There's a lot of games. No, NES games sometimes they're not cheap, but and especially not Super Mario Brothers. Super Mario Brothers was shipped with every single NES ever made. Not only that, you had the separate black box versions, and there are still unopened Super Mario. There are a lot of unopened Super Mario games out there. Yeah, definitely. I'm scared because for a while now, it will settle down eventually because this has happened before with other games. Um, but it's going to be a little bit, a good minute, because now people are going online already and marking Super Mario Brothers up to like $1,000, $10,000, when really in all reality, Super Mario Brothers right now unopened should be around maybe 400. And well, like you said, Nom, you have those people that in yard sales where if I go to a yard sale and I see a game, I'm gonna have somebody pull out their phone, or they're gonna tell me straight up, yeah,
Yeah.
I want $60 for that game or 100, and I'm gonna tell them, no, it's not worth that much. But like you said, there's no game out in the ever like in the world that should be worth $30,000. And
And
if
it,
anything, this could go one of two ways. People are going to be paying for these random games, or people are going to be hogging up these games, essentially raising the price in the retro market, or people are just not going to buy any more retro games. Like this could totally turn off a collector if they see these prices rise up so fast. And really, you could probably either it could possibly cause a bubble to burst. I doubt it, but there's that slim chance of everybody they just stop right there because of that if the prices
Well,
go too high.
you say that. I mean, as it stands, as a collector, someone who wants to rebuild back up their collection, yeah, there's times I take a look at some of these games and I'm like, do I even really want to start collecting again? Because they're so damn expensive.
Yeah. And I mean, hopefully, I mean hopefully this breezes right over. This was in Arizona, if I'm correct. This happened in Arizona. Um, I don't blame the collector for being interviewed at all. You know, it's not his fault. I highly doubt that he knew that, Fox would emphasize on there being a lot of money involved with, or they'd emphasize on, people's games being worth a lot of money. Um, but like you said, Spoons, it's just, the media. They need a story to cover, and there they go. With,
I don't know. To me, that article just screams slow day at the office.
yeah.
it probably is. I mean, there really isn't anything that's happened recently. But, yeah, that happened.
Stir up a bunch of nerds. That's what they did.
Yeah, and not to mention, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure Alpha Omega Sin will hear this, and we're not going to hear the end of it. Like he's gonna go off on him if it somehow reaches, his phone. But until then, we'll see what happens. But on to the next topic, we have GameStop, and what do we think GameStop should change? Because GameStop really, I mean, they're kind of the main source where almost everybody goes for their games, right? They go to pre-order, they go and buy their games there, and GameStop is known for doing some dirty stuff, but I mean they're still standing business. But what do you think they should change in order for them to be a better business, to be better to their customers?
They either need to get rid of all the Think Geek shit, or they need to get a bigger store, because I go there to shop for games. I get having gaming merchandise, but when it clutters the whole damn store and you can't even find a game, or you're forced to go onto their website and buy stuff, it's like, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? I come here for a game, not other merchandise.
Yeah,
I think I'm with you on that. I do like the merchandise stuff there. I would like them to keep it in there. I don't want them to keep it at the expense of games. In fact, can't remember if we talked about this before or not, but GameStop does have their hands on quite a bit of retro merchandise, retro games themselves. Now, hopefully they didn't watch the Fox News article or
oh god.
anything. So now you'll probably hear GameStop coming out with retro game stores now here shortly. But it would be nice to see them add some stuff of that like that to their stores. Obviously, they need to just cut the sleazy shit out altogether. Like, just stop. I think the reason why, and you said they're still going strong, or however you phrase it there, Shroom, They're basically, and I don't know about your area, but in this area, they're basically a monopoly. They're really, the only other choice you have is the selection at, let's say, Walmart or Target, which usually isn't as big, and the used game section is definitely not as big at those particular stores. So it's not technically a monopoly, but it seems like it's pretty damn. It feels like it's pretty damn close to a monopoly. You just don't have that great of choice, at least in outside of metro areas or urban areas. It seems that way, and yeah. Other than that, they just really need to open up and get more game merchandise in there. Whether it be retro, previous generations, that sort of thing. I would love to see it because I would go in there to buy PS3 stuff. I would go in there to buy PS2 stuff. I'd go in there to buy PS1 stuff, but they don't sell it there, so I don't have the reason.
Yeah.
And let me rephrase what I said. I am not against gaming merchandise. I want to buy gaming merchandise, but I'm with you. I feel like if they're putting it in their store and it decreases the amount of space they have for actual games, that's where I draw the problem with it.
Yeah, here's this is just the GameStop here, so I can't say that this is every GameStop. So Nintendo, a little while back, and I did an unboxing of this, released a Pikachu 3DS. GameStop carried, this local GameStop had one, but they only had one, and it wasn't even on the shelf. I had to ask them to go into the back and get it for me, because it wasn't even out. So, why even have it? What I did was I looked it up on Amazon, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to go check GameStop when I get off work tomorrow to see if they carry this particular 3DS, so I can go in, and this kind of speaks to what you're saying. Like, they had plenty of Funko Pop dolls out. They had plenty of, like, Dragon Ball Z statues, plenty of gaming shirts and that sort of thing. And like I said, I love all that stuff. But the Pikachu 3DS, which is an actual video game, well, it's a handheld device used to play video games, wasn't even on the shelf. I had to ask for it. I had to have them go back in the back and get it for me. And they only had one.
Yeah, and I mean, really, I think if your place is called GameStop, if it's GameStop, really, if anything, I think all the merchandise should be secondary. Really, you should have a bigger store, that you could hold all that stuff there and have it out for the people to see. I think that would really probably take away a lot of the problems that GameStop has, because usually when you go into GameStop, if you're looking to buy freaking games or anything, like you said, it's really hard to find it. Sometimes they have them in those like little boxed bins, on the side, for like older games like PS3, Xbox 360, and if they're older Xbox One games or older PS4 games, sometimes they don't even have them out there. You have to ask them, do you have this game in stock? Or it's just not easy for the consumer to go in there and just, look for what, find what they're looking for. You have to.
They are essentially. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
Oh, I forgot what I was going to say. Go on.
They're essentially, and I don't know if you guys have these stores where you live. Have you ever heard of a store called FYE?
Yeah.
Like all the way in the west or east?
It's a music store that essentially is what GameStop is. They basically sell side merchandise like shirts and, like the pop dolls and stuff like that. You take the music and the DVDs out of that particular store and put a couple of games in them, and that's essentially what GameStop is now. It's a FYE with some video games.
Yeah, and I mean, back then, I guess I could understand GameStop. They had smaller stores. Gaming wasn't really what it is today, You didn't have online like this. You had the PlayStation 2 and Xbox, regular Xbox Live, online, but you didn't have this on. You didn't have Xbox Live, PSN, PlayStation 4 quality, online, where you could find people in an instant or just get online, and it wasn't nothing like this, And so gaming definitely it's grown bigger, and I guess I could understand back then. Yeah, you have the smaller stores because maybe gaming wasn't as big, but now there's really no excuse for GameStop not to maybe build or have bigger stores to hold all this merchandise for um, you know, for all their products. And
Yeah.
yeah, and not only that, but I think GameStop could also be controlling the. If you really think about it, they could be controlling the retro market if they wanted to, and how much a game really costs.
They
Because a
might
lot.
not have a choice at some point here with Amazon and buying online and games maybe going to a strictly digital um, platform. They might
Yeah,
really not have a choice at some point. I'd kind of like to see what I'd like to see them do, and again, not at the expense of video games or anything, is kind of get into some tabletop stuff too. Which I
Yeah.
mean, is GameStop. I mean, that'd be nice to have a place to go. I don't know if they even have that on the radar or not, but
yeah, but
And
I.
something just real quickly, something I just want to add before we kind of move on here. One thing that I worked at Walmart in the electronics department, and seeing that there were a lot of stuff. Sometimes people would come in and ask that we didn't have. I mean, we live in this society where Amazon is taking off. A lot more people are making online purchases. Brick and mortar stores only keep the stuff in stores really that they know are going to sell, that are popular, and that kind of forces consumers to go and buy stuff online from their website that they can't get in their store. And I kind of in a way sometimes feel like that's what GameStop has become. Is they only have stock games of what actually sells in their store, and you're more forced to go online to find some of these niche titles.
No, yeah, I agree. I mean, is there anything else y'all would change about GameStop with how it's run?
Some of their shady business practices, we were talking about Xenoblade Chronicles. There's stories floating around that sometimes the new games that are on sale, they'll deliberately hide them in the back to force people to buy the used games at a higher price.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that kind of sucks. I mean, really, because that's 100% profit for GameStop. Anything pre-owned, that's all 100% profit. I don't know. Nomdee, you said something about them being in the digital market. They were trying to sell digitally used games. It was a while
yeah,
back,
that was a while back. Yeah.
but I have no clue. I mean, still, that's like another shady business practice. I don't know how you do that, but um, I don't know. There's a lot of things that they've done. It gets you thinking. But by all means, I'm not. Some of the employees at GameStop, they're great employees. They're good people. Just the company as a whole, though, it just ends up just crapping on everything that the the employees are building up, for their stores, or like the
Yeah,
good
they
image
have
that they have.
an infamously bad name amongst gamers, which is their key demographic. So,
Yeah,
the shadiness needs to stop. Yeah, and I think they would see a great turnaround just from that alone.
they're just being honest with their consumers.
Yeah,
But
stop looking like Wall Street and start looking more like gamers that have owned their own business.
exactly. I mean, sometimes I've run into times where like there's been a couple of times where I've run into a GameStop and the managers don't know nothing about video games at all. And it's not, I mean, I get they're trying to probably run a business, but when you have somebody running the business so they don't know nothing about the business, I think that hurts the company too as well.
Hmm.
Well, funny story about that. I remember when the Nintendo DS and the PSP were out. I had I had gone in to ask if they had I think it was a charger for the car for my PSP, and I went up and asked it, and the guy looks at one of his employees, the assistant manager of Walmart in the electronics department, looks at one of his employees, and he goes, "PSP, that's the thing made by Nintendo, right?"
Cringe.
So I'm like, never mind, I'll just go somewhere else. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, I mean, the stuff like that, it definitely hurts the company. I mean, I doubt GameStop will get it together. If GameStop dies, I mean, hopefully someone else rises to take their place. I'm not saying it would be a completely bad thing, if GameStop wasn't around, but probably wouldn't be a good thing either, since really that's where a lot of people get their stuff. But
I hate to say it, but GameStop dies, you'd see brick and mortar stores pop up called Amazon Games, just strictly selling video games.
And they'll probably do a lot better than GameStop at this point. I would hope. But anyways, I mean, y'all got anything else to add? You got... No? Maybe?
Nope.
Not really. Alright. Alright, well, moving on. So, Nomdee, you're going to cover this about the SNES. What'd you call it? The
Debacle.
debacle. Yeah. So
It seems like anytime Nintendo releases anything, it's a debacle. I mean, we had that weird thing with the SNES Classic Edition and Walmart putting them out too soon. So there was already that, and then you have Nintendo coming out and saying, you know, we're gonna ship way more units this time. It's gonna be more available to everyone. And then you have, like, I think it was Amazon making their pre-orders go live at like what 1 a.m. or something ridiculous.
yeah,
like that.
dude, it was like 3 a.m. in the morning.
Yes, and then you have GameStop sold out almost immediately. I know that the specific GameStop here in store sold out in 5 minutes of their SNES. They said they had people already there waiting in line before it was even announced. The pre-orders are going live. So clearly Nintendo has not learned their lesson on anything. And I'm guessing, does Nintendo even think there is a lesson to be learned? I guess that's one question. Because obviously, a ton of these, and you can even go on eBay right now without the SNES even being released yet. You can go out and buy confirmed pre-orders for over triple the retail price of the SNES Classic Edition.
Were you
So
saying
these
like
are getting in the
$400?
hands, like $240, $300. So clearly these are getting into the hands of professional scalpers, I guess you could call them, the scum of the earth, in my opinion, who probably have some sort of bot system rigged to pre-order these damn things to begin with. I mean, so they're the ones getting their hands on all these. So essentially what you could say now is that the retail price of an SNES Classic Edition was never $80. It was never $80. It was always $240 because these people were always going to get their hands on them no matter what, which I guess we need to ask ourselves. The question then, which I presented to you guys earlier, is this, whose responsibility is this? Because this is madness. Obviously, this is madness. Whose responsibility is this? Is this Nintendo's? Does Nintendo need to ship more units? Would that even fix the problem, or would you just have more getting into the hands of scalpers? Is it up to the retailers? Should they do these pre-orders in waves? Should they have certain limits? Should they limit IP addresses to pre-ordering these things, which I don't know if it's something they do or not. But, you know, is there something the retail level can do to fix this? Is it on eBay to kind of better manage the people selling these types of things on their website? Do they even care? I'm sure they don't, because they rake in a profit from it either way. Or is it, you know, that age-old question, is it just the consumer? You know, it kind of goes along with when, I know when Walmart was really hitting its stride and opening up and it was closing down all kinds of businesses, you had Walmart supercenters popping up everywhere. And people were going, oh, Walmart supercenter, they're just killing the businesses everywhere. They're killing them everywhere. Well, is that Walmart's fault, or is it your fault for shopping there? So, like, is it the scalper's fault, or is it your fault for buying them from the scalpers? If you just didn't buy them from the scalpers, what you do is you leave them with this debt of whatever they spent to buy 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 SNES Classic Editions that they can't unload for anything more than what the retail price was. So really, who's to blame here? I guess, I mean, what do you guys think? Who's to blame? Is it the consumer? Is it the retailer? Is it Nintendo? It only seems like it only ever happens really with Nintendo, at least in great detail.
There were issues with the PlayStation 3 popping up that they were...
I remember that.
But, I mean, honestly, it's like we were talking before the podcast, too. I mean, you can have a company whose integrity is intact. You know, we're going to come in, we're going to make sure that it's only one per customer. But you have those consumers who have ways to cheat the system. They have family, they call up family, they pre-order online. If they were to block IP addresses, they could do that. They have, you know, I can go into the store with my wife, completely pretend we didn't know each other. She picks up one, I pick up one. I mean, there's so many ways around it, and it's
Yeah. I mean, there would be ways, I guess, to reduce it. But me, I guess, whose fault is it? It could possibly be everybody's. I mean, one, okay, Nintendo, they're not keeping up with their stock. That's their fault. They're not keeping up with it. They're not sending enough. Really, if anything, they should have just said, yeah, pre-order online, and however many people pre-ordered, they're gonna make that amount, and then plus maybe a couple of, maybe like 4,000 more, for anybody who didn't pre-order it, or whatever. They could have just done that. That way they could see how much, resources they need ahead of time.
Logical
Yeah,
stuff, yeah.
that's logical, really. Like, just I would tell the person in charge of it, like, see how many people are pre-ordering, and then, maybe like in the first 3 months, have the pre-orders out for a month. By the end of the month, you see the amount of pre-order numbers or whatever. You make that many units plus a few more for people who don't have access to the internet or who just didn't know, to sell it in stores. Granted, the SNES Mini is going to sell copies no matter what, really. It sells itself. So Nintendo's fault for not keeping in stock or keeping up with, their own stock. The sellers, Walmart, GameStop, whatever, their fault for selling to the scalpers multiple copies, saying that, oh yeah, there's no limit that you can buy. They're not keeping control. They're not in control of their stock. So that's why when you go to Walmart or GameStop, the stuff's already gone. Because you had one person walk in with $600 and they pre-ordered all the copies that there is. So there you go. Could be the seller's fault. The stores, and then the buyers. The buyers for us buying the copies that the scalpers take. That's our fault, because really what we're doing is kind of telling the scalpers and Nintendo, no, it's okay, we'll just buy it from somebody else for more money. And really, if Nintendo sees it, I mean, I doubt Nintendo, obviously they know about it, but it's not doing anything. They're not doing anything. To them, they're basically what they're telling us, yeah, it's fine, go ahead and buy it for $250. We already made our money off of them because they paid us $600 for all these copies. I mean, really, everybody's kind of except the stores, but Nintendo specifically is really the one that's losing in all of it. Me personally, if I couldn't get my hands on an SNES, I'm not buying it for anything more than what it was retailed for. Just because I don't feel like supporting a scalper, and I probably don't feel like supporting a product that, I mean, again, Nintendo knows that people want it, but they hate their money. They hate the money that they want to, hate the money that they could earn. They just stop it. I mean, really, it's a big vicious cycle,
And I hate to say it, but you're going to have those people pop up and go, "Oh well, you can only get Star Fox Adventure or Star Fox 2 on the SNES Classic," and someone's going to find a way to get a ROM of that and post it online somewhere. So it's still going to be in playable form by other means.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. I wouldn't be surprised if it already is.
Yeah, and I mean, you got anything else on that? No, I mean, like, because
really, that's just
our blood vessels are going to burst.
Yeah, it's. I'm going to try my damnedest, and I've already taken a vacation day from work on September 29th, the day it releases, which is a Friday, I believe. I'm going to try my damnedest. I will be at Walmart before. Now, Walmart's a little different than GameStop in this particular area because Walmart's open 24/7, so they will be available at 12 a.m. So I will be at Walmart early enough to hopefully get my hands on as many as I can. I don't know if they're going to impose some sort of limit per person. I'm going to try to get as many as I can, and I will probably end up giving them away. Probably through my channel, I would think.
Yeah, I mean that's what I'm gonna do. I too, I already took off my days. I took off 2 actually, the day before it releases and the day it does, because I'm gonna be hella tired waiting in line. I'm not sure which one I'll tackle first, either Walmart or GameStop. Walmart, I have insiders. They will tell me, when they get there and when the shipments come, because I used to work there a long time ago. So they keep me updated on all their stock and everything, so I'll know when and where. So
I got to switch through similar means at Walmart, so I have more confidence that I live in like a fairly rural area. So Walmart, no, the GameStop's in more of an urban area. It's a little further away, so I feel more confident that I'll be able to get one or multiple ones from Walmart than I will be from GameStop.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I hope it really works out, because I mean, I want to give those copies to people. If there are maybe like people waiting in line who honestly want a copy, I'll hand it to them. But it's just like, I want people to get the copies, people who want to enjoy the console. I don't want to give it to somebody who's going to turn around and just say, "Oh, I'm going to sell it for like $500 now," because it's a collector's item. Because really, that would be terrible. That's not why you're buying all those copies, or you're gonna be buying all the copies. Is to give it out to the people who want to enjoy the console for what it is. And for most people, they want to buy the console because they want to show their kids that, hey, we grew up on this. This is the Legend of Zelda that we grew up with. You know, this is what it was. This is what kind of put Zelda on the map. This is what put Final Fantasy on the map. You know, it's just a lot of things. You know.
That's the worst part for me too. I envision like someone going, like, they don't know necessarily maybe that they're missing out on something.
Yeah.
But yeah, you could have a whole new generation of people appreciate retro video games. Like, just like there's kids who appreciate, you know, like the Rolling Stones or Led Zeppelin or stuff. Like, there's probably a 15-year-old out there who listens to Metallica, you know, an older band or something like that.
Yeah.
And it's easier, obviously it's 100 times easier to get into retro music than it is retro video games. So, you know, it's too bad, because it's something that I enjoyed. And if you look at that list, the list of games for the Super Nintendo Mini is incredible. That is all A pluses. Every single game on there is an incredible game.
There's not a single bad game on there, because
no, none.
Those are all critically acclaimed games. Not only that, but all those games kind of shaped the industry to what it is today. Really, if you really think about it, all those games were those milestones.
The worst game on there is Contra. The worst game on there is Contra.
Yeah.
The only thing it lacks is Chrono Trigger. Like, that's the glaring absence. I mean, there's other games they could have put on there too, but Chrono Trigger is the big one, I think. But still, even without Chrono Trigger, that's an awesome lineup. Incredible.
Yeah. But I really hope that for some magical reason, if it happens, you guys see a shooting star, be sure to wish on it. That Nintendo makes more of these, and the scalpers lose out. You know, I hope that a lot of people can get their hands on this product, because it's definitely an amazing product, and something that I could see a lot of parents.
It's an awesome idea, like, from Nintendo. It's a great idea, and I would love to see PlayStation get in on this. PS1 Mini, that would be incredible.
Yeah,
I would kill just to get my hands on one of those, because you know that would be loaded with great games.
Yeah, and but like I said, hopefully people can get their hands on that and enjoy it for what it is with the family. The parents can show their kids, you know, that, you know, what gaming was like 20 years ago, 30 years ago, technically. God damn, stop. But yeah, I really hope that, you know, eventually Nintendo realizes what they have on their hands is a gem, and they can keep on making them. But all right, anything anything else on that? No.
I think we vented enough on that one.
Yeah, that kind of covered our next article too. On is it the retailer's job to make sure there's enough stock? I think we kind of covered that in there too a little bit. Unless you have anything else to say on that.
No, I think what you said made the most sense about them. If they're gonna do a pre-order, then gauge from that pre-order how many you need to make.
Yeah. And really, if Nintendo wanted, like I said, they could have just asked pre-orders, or they could just put out in a tweet or something easily. How many of you guys are interested in this product, that we know that we can make enough stock for you guys, or go on our website and just, you know, sign up or pre-order, and by the end of the month we'll have a decent number, and then we'll make that many plus some more for you guys. It's not that hard, but apparently it's more complicated than it seems, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess that's it. Do you guys have any other topics you want to talk about? We have
If Nom's up for it, real quick, did you get a chance to look up that article that I sent you on Twitter?
Which one? Didn't you send me a couple of them?
It was the one about Bethesda and the mods.
Oh, no. I think the only one... Now, see, I'm mixing my articles up here, because I think you also sent me one about Nintendo being sued, right?
Yeah, there was that one.
Was that you that sent? Yeah, that's the only one I got a chance to look at. I didn't get to the Bethesda one yet.
In a nutshell, give you an idea, Bethesda has announced their creation club. And in this creation club, they're basically paying modders to go ahead and make mods for games and then turn around and sell those mods for profit. So they're essentially just profiting off of what the mod community is creating. And I was kind of curious to hear your thoughts about this, because that's partly the reason I want to get into Elder Scrolls on the PC, is the modding, and if I have to pay for it, then that kind of shuns me from doing so.
So if I'm gathering this right, you're saying that people are creating the mods for free, and Bethesda is trying to sell them for profit.
No, they are selling them. They are. Yeah, they are selling them.
They are working with the modders, employing them like people to actually go through and create this, or create these mods. I mean, the big thing with it though is they're taking mods that people have already created, or like making their own versions of these mods and then turning around and selling them.
Right, and that to me, and that's what I thought originally, that sounds like plagiarism. I don't know, like, if we get into the intricacies of that. They said, well, you know, it's in our EULA, it's our game that they're creating for them, it's our source code that they're messing around with to begin with. I don't know if that means there's no legal grounds to say this is officially plagiarism or not. The justice system aside, that sounds like some bullshit. And I think if Bethesda wants to keep their name intact, they should maybe sort of shy away from doing that, because it doesn't sound like there's a whole lot to be gained, especially if you are still able to use the original mods to begin with, you know, like the fan-made ones.
Yeah, well, basically what it turned out to be is that, because you can still download mods for free, right, for like Fallout 4, Skyrim, and all that good stuff. You have all those mods there, but they turn off the achievements, right? Basically, these mods are meant for you to turn them, or you can download these mods, that way you can keep achievements on. That's basically what it's turned out to be.
Yeah. My concise, short opinion on that is it's shitty on Bethesda's part. Just it's like what we said with GameStop. It's something that sounds shady and greedy.
It's really sad though, because Bethesda, I mean, I mentioned this, I think in the last one. You weren't there, Nomdee, but we were talking about this topic the other day, and Bethesda was one of those companies I would go and I would defend, you know, because of how good they were to the community. But after this,
yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah, and after this, it was just kind of like, you better stop it, you know, because there's some people out there, you know, they trust Bethesda with everything, but small shady practices like this I think it could damage their reputation as a company.
And I think what really pissed me off about this more than anything, Nomdee, what I read that really made me mad, is when you had Peter Hines from Bethesda actually going to Twitter and arguing with his fans to justify their decision.
Yeah, no, it just sounds shitty to me. That's the word that keeps coming to mind, is shitty.
Yeah. Dom, what was the other one? I mean, Spoonies, about the Wii. Oh, no, Nintendo
Oh,
losing the lawsuit over the Wii remotes. Just,
quick thoughts on that?
Yeah, and to be honest, the company that sued them, I don't really know anything about. Um, Obviously they had legal grounds because they won, but yeah, I don't really know that much about them. And the only thing I could think of when I read that, and I tweeted this back to you, Spoons, was it's ironic. It's ironic that Nintendo that, and I know that patents and copyright are kind of different animals, but they're kind of the same. You're talking about an idea that you're making money off of that's really somebody else's concept, and Nintendo is so judge, jury, executioner, especially when it comes to YouTube, which is a forum that we all use here. And they come down hard on YouTubers for using playing Mario, or playing Zelda, or playing these games online. And basically, anyone who gives Nintendo a bad review doesn't have the right to use their stuff, and therefore they're enforcing this copyright law on these YouTubers, saying no, you can't use this stuff. And it's funny just to see them, and I know it's like 10 million to Nintendo is probably like, what is that even anything to them? I don't know. But it's just kind of ironic to see that it was Nintendo got slapped with this. Hey, you guys are breaking the rules here. It's ironic.
it could be worse.
I think the one that got me is we also have this whole thing going on with the Nintendo Switch, and this one gets more serious because the company just isn't going after legal damages for or just a piece of the pie to get money from Nintendo. They want to completely stop development of the Nintendo Switch if they win this lawsuit because of the Joy-Con remotes.
Yeah, and then as far as where that could lead to, like, I don't know how serious is, like, what's the danger level of that? And has some sort of game plan in place to where maybe they have an alternative version. I don't know, or at least just a regular console to play their games on that doesn't necessarily incorporate the Joy-Cons, which is a huge part of the Switch, to be honest, but I think there are ways they could get around it to where they wouldn't have to just be like, oh, we got to pull all the Switches off the shelf. It's no longer available. In which case, we're going to have the scalpers back out in full force.
Yeah, well, essentially, the Nintendo Switch would possibly, if that would happen, it would be the most expensive console on the planet, really, if you think about it.
Yeah.
Because there would be no more. That'd be it.
Yeah, I honestly hope it doesn't go that far. I could see them. Maybe they could just, if I don't think it. See, I don't ever think it would get to the point where they would have to pull the Switch or anything. Because what was this other company's name? It's slipping. What was it?
Which one? Something for the Wii remotes.
Pad, wasn't it? Or the Wii remote, or
the ones that are claiming that this was their idea originally. That
What, the
Nintendo
Switch?
stole it from them.
it was WikiPad,
Yeah.
wasn't it? That's what we decided on the other day.
Wikipad. Okay, so they basically could release something similar to the Switch, let's say, and it would not do as well as the Switch. And that is simply because Nintendo owns the rights to all of their intellectual property that is being released for the Switch. Mario, Zelda. So I can't ever see them getting rid of the Switch for this reason. I think before that would actually happen, that this company would agree to be let in on piece of the pie before that it ever got pulled, because they gain nothing from the Switch being pulled, because they're not going to be able to recreate the Switch regardless of whether or not they own the rights to its specific hardware. They do not own the rights to Zelda Breath of the Wild. They do not own the rights to Mario Odyssey, which to me is a more integral part of the success of the Switch than simply its hardware itself. So if they were to come out and go, here is the Switch, the whatever they want to call it, no one's going to buy it. They're not going to gain money off of this. So to me, the more likely option would be, hey, look, we cut you in on this. You start making money off of it. we get to keep the Switch on the shelves and make money off ourselves. I think that would be the more likely scenario. Again, I'm not a lawyer, so I can't really tell you the legal ins and outs of this. That's just what seems logical to me.
It seems legit. but yeah, I mean, hopefully Nintendo. I'm not afraid that Nintendo's gonna get in trouble or they're gonna have to take the Switches off the shelves. One thing that Walter pointed out on the last talk show is that look how long it took for the Wii remote thing to get just resolved, you know, and the Wii is it's out of production already. It's done.
Right. That's
Nintendo,
another thing too.
Yeah, Nintendo made all the money that they could off, the Wii remote, and they probably saw this beforehand. And really, $10 million, that's a small. I highly doubt, like, that was a lot of money to them, for how much money they've made off the Switch.
Okay.
Yeah, like, okay, yeah, there we go, $10 million, leave. It's not. It was probably chump change to Nintendo. And if they were able to hold that Wii remote thing off until the end of the console's life cycle, and then some, I mean, they probably forgot all about it, and it just popped up right in their faces, for all that could have happened. And then the Switch, if the Switch is able to run its course, and then the new console comes out, and then finally this gets disputed or like resolved or whatever, it's Nintendo. They made all the money they could off of it. What are they going to do? Take it off the shelves? Oh yeah, we don't sell the console anymore. Sorry. It's too late. Damages wouldn't be. There wouldn't be a lot of damages to the company. I mean, it would be nothing, really, at this point.
And I think I remember reading somewhere too that the Nintendo 3DS was also in a lawsuit because of the 3D capabilities, and it was like the same company kind of going for it. I don't really think Nintendo would be stupid enough if they did rip off the company to go after the same company twice.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyways, you guys got anything else? We got quite a bit.
Nope.
All right. Well. All right. Well, then, as always, before we end, hey guys, remember, pick your game. One game that y'all have been enjoying. Just kind of give a little brief summary of what it's about, how much you've been enjoying it. Nom?
Well, I mean, is it really even a question for me? Because it's the game I've been playing I'm playing it right now as we've been talking about all this. It's Final Fantasy 12. And I made a video back in, I think, maybe April. No, it was before April. Probably about like February in that time, talking about hidden gems that I think were coming out this year. And I mentioned Final Fantasy XII, the Zodiac Age, just because it's a remaster. I thought that this would be overlooked, and to me, I'm having so much fun playing this. It's like playing it the first time again. Not that there's stuff new in it to make it feel like it's the first time. It's just the game's so much fun. I would recommend this for any Final Fantasy fan. A lot of people didn't get to play this simply because of the time it was released, and people were moving on to the PS3, and it was a PS2 game. Same fate that Final Fantasy IX tragically suffered with the PS1 and the PS2. Either way, excellent, underrated Final Fantasy, and the sheer magnitude of the content within this game is awesome. There's just so much to do. There's so many side quests. The landscapes are huge. There's so much to explore. Dungeons are relevant throughout the game. One dungeon you might go into and kind of do your thing in there, but you might have to come back at a later point in time for a side quest and find out there's a whole nother area to that dungeon that has higher level monsters, and there's just enough to keep you enthralled, and the storyline speaks for itself. It's a good storyline that I think gets a lot of flack. Kind of went over this all in my video that I posted on it, but yeah, Final Fantasy 12 for me it's awesome. It's a must-have for any Final Fantasy fan.
Dang. All right. Spoony Bard?
You go first. I gotta think.
You gotta think. Legit, you took mine, Nomdee. So I'm thinking, because I mean, what sucks is that I guess I'm gonna add a little bit to it. Final Fantasy 12, it got its second lifespan, right? We got it again, but I still feel like it's overlooked. I still have people that they were gonna buy it, but they told me that, oh yeah, I canceled my pre-order, or no, it doesn't look it looks like an MMO, and it's just like you got to try the game for yourself, really, because a lot of people that no one talks about the game. Even now that it's out, I haven't run into anybody who's told me, yeah, I bought Final Fantasy 12, I'm playing it, I'm enjoying it. I haven't run into anybody who's said that. And it's definitely, it is a gem. It is a really good Final Fantasy game that, like Nom said, I can't really say anything else that, to cover the game. Because Nom's really, he kind of took over that, nailed everything. But if you haven't, I would recommend picking that up. So you have 2 recommendations from that. And if that one doesn't count, I'm going to just straight up and say it right now. I've been playing Destiny 2 for the past, what time is it? At 6 o'clock here. So I started at midnight last night. I've been playing it for a good like 10, 12 hours already. And already, if any of you guys, I wouldn't say it's a solid buy for some people, but as far as an improvements, there definitely is a story here, and there's a lot more cinematics, and they actually explain a lot of the lore better than the first Destiny did, and a lot of the gameplay has been polished. Almost everything that was flawed in the first Destiny, they went and fixed so far. That I've seen. So you have a villain, you have something to fight for, you have reason to play the game. The loot is delivered a little bit better. The maps, they look more well thought out, and the character designs like I said, everything looks polished. It looks a lot better. It looks way better than the first Destiny. And I think really, if you guys were excited about the first Destiny, this is kind of living up to what originally Destiny had hyped up the game for itself to be. So far, but I mean,
I wholeheartedly agree with that. I've been playing this with him the whole stream and a little bit before, and it is a major improvement over the first one.
So yeah, I mean, that's mine. The Spoony, you got one?
I actually do. I thought of one. We were talking about it. I haven't played this game in ages, mind you, but we were talking about it earlier after I had made mention of this game in Space Battles. Star Fox Assault. Such an underrated title. It was just it took the missions on the ground, it had you running around with a gun. It's kind of where the Star Fox franchise needed to go, and I feel like it just got way too much hate of what it deserved. And it's something that I wish Star Fox Zero would have built up on. So if you can find one for the GameCube for a cheap price, or have a powerful enough computer to run that thing on emulator, definitely worth a pickup.
Yeah, it definitely is an underrated title. Right next to Adventures.
Yep.
But all right. Anyways, you guys got anything else you want to add? You got?
Nope.
No. All right. All right then. Well, I guess we'll conclude this podcast. Nomdee, do you want to conclude it like the way you always do?
Sure. Hey, thanks guys for joining us